What else then?
Well, Master, we are still waiting for your answer.
I've answered already.
Forgive me, but we never received it.
I have no time, I have work to do, can't you see?
He's painting himself.
So you are refusing our commission in order to make a painting of yourself?
Isn't that the most interesting subject? Do you know anyone who thinks that someone else is more important than himself? It's over. It's past time. This is the last thing I'll work on. There'll be no more paintings from me.
But Master, this is a man who would be worth it to paint.
Psh, nonsense.
Perhaps first you should meet him. Understand, Master, John Amos Comenius is our bishop. We have a great need for that painting. Families of our brothers have been persecuted and exiled throughout all of Europe, and it's not sure that they'll ever be able to return someday.
So what? They exiled me as well. I had to leave my house too. It was confiscated. I can't go back to my home either, and you know who kicked me out? It was people just like you. All righteousness, such decent people, and I, Rembrandt, now have to live in rented rooms.
But you see, it's only thanks to Comenius that our brethren church didn't fall apart long ago. And a portrait of him would be a symbol of hope for so many, as well as a nice memory.
This your Comenius. The greatest scholar of our time, you say? Gifted linguist, a reformer of education, and a bishop to top it all. It's starting to grow on me. Now you'll tell me he's a model father and a family man.
It is so, Master.
All right, but don't get too excited. I've seen his type before, standing here right in front of me. Those prelates and bloated churchmen. As for your Comenius, his skin must be stretched to the breaking point to hold all that stuff inside, right? For such a famous bishop, your clothes are quite threadbare.
Our church is not a large one, Master, and quite poor.
And how does the bishop of such a small and poor church accidentally settle in one of the richest cities in the world?
I'm here in Amsterdam by invitation.
Then your patron must be a very generous man. I've heard a lot of money pass through your hands. Don't get me wrong. People are interested in money. Hard to have secrets when gold is concerned.
We have various types of patrons. Some are men of faith, but also enlightened people, philanthropists. We receive money from England, from Sweden.
And nice for you.
We use it for preparing and printing books. And a great part we send further on to help our exiled diaspora to Hungary, Poland, to Silesia.
You're probably the only bishop in the world who isn't feathering his own nest.
I lost my parents quite early on, and our church, the Brethren Church, became my family in their place. So now you tell me, friend, who would steal from his own family? For a little while, I lived with my uncle and aunt in Strashnitsa. After my parents died, life just carried on as normal. There was nothing to suggest that another storm was coming. All the same, one morning, as we were collecting brushwood in a nearby forest, another drama began to unfold.
I can't see anything! What is that?
Miklash! Hey, Miklash! Miklash, what's going on? Hey, guys, quick, come here!
Bochkai's soldiers!
Hey, wake up!
Bochkai's soldiers! They're here! They'll kill us all!
Are you crazy or something? He said Bochkai soldiers?
They're coming for us!
What if this is a warning? A warning from God? I must run town!
I've seen death. I've seen the mask of death.
I believed Mikolash's strange vision and ran to Strashnitsa as if my life depended on it. Before long, it was clear that Bochkai's troops were indeed nearing the town.
Bochkai's soldiers?
Istvan Bochkai was the prince from neighboring Transylvania. The Habsburgs were busy suppressing religious freedom over there like they did with us. So he allied himself with the Turkish.
A deal with the devil.
We assumed that Bochkai was in alliance with us. But when his hordes invaded Moravia, they couldn't care less if you were a Habsburg or not.
So not exactly brothers in faith.
Run away, are you dead? Bochkai are coming! Slow down. What are you saying?
But that's... isn't that Bietka? Run to the forest!
It was my first encounter with the rage of war. In Strashnitsa, I lost my beloved Uncle Martin and many, many friends. Only a handful of us survived. The red rage of Botchkai's troops seemed unquenchable, and most of the town turned to ashes that day. How long will it take you until the painting is done? I mean, I have a lot of work.
I hope it won't take long. The sooner the better. After all, this is the last painting I'll make.
The last one? Isn't that a pity? With all your talent?
I can offer you supper. Modest, unless the bishop refuses.
Listen, just so you know, this bishop is no stranger to hunger. When I was returning home from Heidelberg, as a young student, I thought I would die of hunger. Back then, I used to sleep wherever I could, almost always outdoors under the stars. And you know what I used for a pillow? Copernicus.
Who?
A book. Copernicus's manuscript, Revolutions of Celestial Spheres. I spent my very last penny on it. And so I had to walk all the way home.
And isn't that manuscript banned?
It is. The church claims that it contradicts the scripture.
Maybe you see it differently.
I'm curious, my friend. It seems there are so many wonderful things in the world that we don't yet understand. But perhaps one day we'll find out that they don't, in fact, contradict the will of God. In the end, we might discover even Copernicus was right. And that the Earth cannot actually be at the center of the universe. Do you know why I envy Copernicus? He figured out the planets' orbits, their mass, and could stand by his work. It's a shame that's not how it works with people today. I've always hoped that people might come up with fresh perspectives. But they never do. Most of them are blind.
So this is your Copernicus. Are you aware, John, that this book denies the Holy Scriptures?
Have you read it?
Have you no shame for bringing this filth among us?
I thought I was among friends.
I can't bring myself to look at it.
I bought the book directly from the estate of Professor Chrisman, who was teaching here up until last year. He himself didn't think it was dangerous at all.
Copernicus's theories are sinful. I shouldn't even listen to you.
You wanted me to show it to you.
That was overly reckless of me. He is a heretic. And you would do well to be more careful around here.
Just think about Giordano Bruno.
And just imagine, the Professor Chrisman wanted to teach Copernicus's mathematics.
It's lucky the renowned professor has passed away.
Do you really not want to know the truth?
I won't listen to you anymore. This book plainly undermines the Bible.
How would you know?
that you can see the stars from a well even in broad daylight. It seemed incredible.
You didn't climb down a well, did you?
It was a long time ago. I wouldn't even try it today.
Do they shine?
They do. No one knows why, but I promise it's true. Even the Apostle Paul writes that our knowledge is incomplete. Perhaps one day we will understand Copernicus. Want to borrow it?
What?
Well, that book of Copernicus's. I have a copy.
Come off it. I don't understand those kind of things. Tomorrow? Will you come? I'd be glad to see you.
And do you believe me now, my little Magdalena?
It's beautiful. The sky full of stars in broad daylight.
Now that we're under the stars, isn't it time for love?
Not here.
Hold on, you vixen.
You're beautiful. Just like an angel.
Quiet. We shouldn't wake the little one.
And what about this one? Can you feel anything yet?
Be patient, my love. It will come soon.
The motherland is dying and you're asleep!
Who is that there?
Your guardian angel.
Mikolash?
Is it really you?
Wake, thou that sleepest. This is life and death, my friend. I was there. I saw everything.
Where were you?
The old town square in Prague. They executed them all. All the leaders of the uprising murdered. And in the end, even those who had little to do with it. There were 27 of them. They put their heads in baskets and hung them around the town as warning.
That's impossible.
The heads of those great men fell to the ground, one after another.
How could Liechtenstein allow it? He was one of us. Friends with Karel the Elder of Girardin. He studied at our Brethren school, believed in what we believe.
Liechtenstein. Charles of Liechtenstein. A walking desire for power and property.
What kind of world is this, Mikolash?
Liechtenstein-like.
I wanted to stay in Fulnik as long as I could. At that time, my pupils were far more important to me than any kinds of worries about my own life. Teachers used to be extremely strict and harsh. I could never approve of their ways of teaching. All kinds of physical punishment were a part of the daily routine. And I realized that if I wanted to change the way kids were taught, it would have to be completely different. I realized that some kind of drawing, a painted picture, is very important for people. It could help you understand a story better, be a learning tool. but you know it better than anyone. In the end, I created an entire pictorial textbook. Perhaps it was the very first book of its kind. But of course that was a lot later, during my stay in Hungary. But pictures connected with a text intrigued the children. This was when I was in Fulnek, a young novice teacher.
Children, now I'm going to show you something. Marianka, what is depicted in this picture?
Those are wells, sir.
That's right. They are wells. And at the bottom is written the word for wells in Latin. Pute.
Pute.
Correct. Here is a picture of a blacksmith at his workshop. You all know that very well. Good. And here underneath, the word for blacksmith is written again in Latin. Faber Ferrarius.
Faber Ferrarius.
Correct. Good. And who knows what is depicted in this picture? Voiter.
A beekeeper and his hives.
That's right. Voiter lives on a farm where they have a lot of beehives. That's why he knows it well. Marianka, can you please pass it round so the others can see? Thank you. To be able to look at pictures and to read books, to do all that, we need paper. This is a depiction of how that kind of paper is made. And down here, we have the Latin word for paper. It's simple. Papyrus.
Papyrus.
Correct.
Please, sir.
Yes, Voiter?
My father once told me that people used to write on stones.
That's right, correct. People used to engrave on stones and then later in wax. And today we write and print on paper. Paper is then made into sheets, which are bound together and become a book. And that whole process is shown in this picture. Children, everything that we should ever know is recorded in books. Every wisdom. Our Brethren Bible was written in the same way. Remember this saying well. Those who don't love books have no love of wisdom, and those who have no love of wisdom are destined to be fools.
Back then, I could not conceive of, or even want to consider, that I could ever leave Fulnek. I could see how this new method of teaching was attractive for the children. How quickly they ingested all the new subjects. I was not destined to stay long in Fulnek.
You must disappear! Disappear, John! I've had horrible visions.
Mikolash.
The sooner the better. For God's sake! Believe me! With my own eyes, I saw entire families being dragged into black cells just because they refused to give up their faith!
Not now,
Perhaps
Mikolash.
folks will hunt us down like dogs! Not one of our sacred lives will be spared.
Mikolash, not now.
They are going to burn us! And hang us from trees!
They're just children.
But quarter us! Set our houses on fire!
No!
They will take everything we have!
No!
We are less than vermin to them, John!
Mikolash!
We are less than manure to them!
Marianka, what is it?
Are they going to throw us down into the wells too?
I'm just saying you should leave.
This is our home, Godfather. Why should we leave it? Because you had some stupid dream.
Have you forgotten, John? You did forget. You forgot about the botch guy, eh? Or was that also just a dream?
You know, Magdalenka, Mikolash sometimes has visions. Visions that come to pass. I saw it happen.
So we should pack everything. Take the baby and run away. Leave all the beauty we have here. Just because of a crazy vision that might never come true.
Vision or no vision. Who welcomed in front of the whole town of Olomouc Friedrich Falski, the Habsburgs' biggest enemy? That wasn't you by any chance, John? I know you forgot. Believe me that they have not. There's a monastery here in Fulnek. You honestly think they know nothing about you? That monastery can hardly wait. They're practically shivering in anticipation of ripping out all the heretical weeds you planted here. There were 27 of them!
In the end, I convinced Magdalena to take our son and move away to her parents in Pcherov, hoping that in a town under the protection of Lord Sheraton, she'd be free from harm. But I couldn't leave Fulnek yet. There were still many people who wanted to listen to sermons from their fraternal preacher and were not afraid of the consequences. And when we could no longer meet in buildings, we met in the temple of nature.
He who depends only on himself has failed to appreciate his own inadequacy. And it is not good when a person believes that he is wise. Wisdom, we must seek first and foremost from our Creator. We must study diligently and edify our spirits. If we can bring ourselves to truly rely on Him, then we will be like a tree planted by a river of clear water, that bringeth forth its fruit in its true season. Then we will be of sound mind, and no slander will upset us. We will not be afraid of anything, not even death, the worst enemy. We will simply know that nothing in heaven or on earth shall be able to separate us from the love of God.
Eventually, I could not stay there. The warnings kept coming from all directions.
And your wife?
I was never able to see her again. She brought another son into the world. But before I could get back to her, there was a plague in Pcherov. And I lost all three of them.
This is Saskia, my beloved first wife. People think that they understand everything, that they can imagine everything. Like someone close to them goes away, dies. But only those who have really experienced it can truly understand.
I wrote her letters, but she had passed away.
Do you know what Saskia used to call me? She used to say, "Little Remy."
Magdalenka used to call me Yannick. So you understand, it means little John, but also a lunatic. A madman. We were so young, so full of life. And they took it all away from us. For 1.5 years, we lived in abject misery. We saw no hope. Instead, we fell deeper and deeper into a yawning, bottomless abyss of despair that engulfed us. How many thousands were murdered in those harrowing years? How many arrested? How many destroyed by hunger, wasting plagues, biting cold, nakedness, bitter despair, inconsolable grief, fear and terror. How many temples confiscated? How many priests expelled? How many people of high or low estate impoverished? How many lost their souls, recanting their precious faith in the face of imprisonment, devilish afflictions, or clever seductions? In this world, it is futile to look for help, for even a spark of hope. Return to us, O God, who hath rejected us, and grant us thy help in the face of our enemies. For we have hope in no other but thee. It is vain to look for help from men, but in thee we act valiantly, for thou shalt trample our foes. I have no idea how I survived that journey. I set out for Brandis, where Cariel the Elder gave me asylum. For several days I'd had nothing to eat. I could barely stand. But thanks to some good people, I was able to meet the family of our brethren Bishop Cyril. He was also on his way to Brandis. It was from him that I learned that in Fulneck they had burned my entire library.
You have allowed sin to seize the entire town of Fulneck, and now your innocent children will clear this rat's nest of heretics. I even found that preacher's books right in the town hall. Many books. Forbidden and useless. Just look! The Devil's Work by Comenius. Reading for the damned. Well, we shall send them where they belong.
Remember this saying well. Those who don't love books have no love of wisdom. And those who have no love of wisdom are destined to be fools.
Do not hesitate, little girl. You deserve a place in paradise.
What is it, Brother Cyril?
We have to leave, now! The Emperor's soldiers are in the town, and I'm afraid they know of us already! We need to hurry.
Dorothy, are you all right?
Oh, my leg.
Does it pain you, Dorothy?
Not anymore, it's better now.
Do you know where I saw you the first time? In Bethlehem Chapel, when your father served as its deacon. You were just a little girl then. I stopped in Prague on the way back from my studies. It was wonderful to stand where Master John used to preach. It was unforgettable. So, Dorothy Sirinova.
We were safe again for a while. We stayed on the Brandis estate of Karel the Elder of Geratin. It was he who allowed me to stay in Herborn and Heidelberg in my youth. He was once the second most powerful man in the country, but everything changed after the Battle of White Mountain. Even Geratin was slowly losing the ground under its feet. And the Habsburgs, like some kind of unkillable hydra, was spreading across the whole country. It was an example of the cruelty and ruthlessness people are capable of when they're thirsty for power.
That's what people are like now. I'm glad that you noticed.
There you are. I thought you would be different.
And a good morning to you too.
Why would you have me read this?
To know your opinion.
Why are you comparing marriage to shackles? You had a good wife, didn't you? Why did you marry her then? Is something funny?
With marriage, it's more complicated.
Marriage is a sacrament, and you are questioning it.
No. I question only what people make of it.
Well, that is true. Perhaps I should have read a bit more.
It's called Labyrinth of the World and Paradise of the Heart. I'd like to dedicate this book...
To whom?
To Karel the Elder of Geratin. Everyone just turned their back on him. They call him a traitor, even here among the brothers whom he has given aid to. He did not join the alliance, so they say he is to blame for the defeat at White Mountain.
Our family stands by Geratin.
Yes, he saved thousands of men who would otherwise have been pointlessly killed.
My father says that God helped him make that decision, and that Christianity should be completely freed from violence. I believe so too.
I like your sincerity, Dorothy.
Then what happened?
It's only a matter of time before even Brandish wouldn't be safe for us.
Well, I'm not interested.
I was sent to Lesno, where the first wave of our exiled people lived. I was to learn if the Poles would accept us. And then Karel the Elder...
I'm sorry, my friend, but I don't really want to hear about Karel the Elder.
Then what do you want to hear?
Come on. Did you get her?
Get who?
That fiery tomboy who scattered your writings across the meadow.
So you're interested in Dorothy Sirilova? And I guess she was in me, though I don't pretend to understand the reason for it. But you want to hear if there was a wedding. Of course there was.
Ah, now we have it. She must have been a gorgeous woman, right?
At that time, I went to visit the Prophet Kottet. Imagine he predicted the fall of the Habsburgs. And that was exactly what we all needed to hear.
But I'd much rather hear about your Dorothy. Dorothy, is that so hard to understand?
You might find it a bit funny. And many took pleasure in laughing at poor old Cotter. But soon, his words began to come true. Like when the anti-Catholic Unity Army invaded northern Moravia. All the time, more and more prophecies kept coming. There was this one, Christina Poniatowska was her name. Such a sweet young girl.
A young girl, you say? What about her?
The Church of God will be brought out into an open space. Into a beautiful vineyard. Delivered from the hands of the cruel-hearted. And it will sing with all of its heart.
She won't say more. She's much too exhausted.
I think I've heard enough. I'm now convinced that it was a prophetic vision.
But the doctors are of a different opinion, Master Comenius. They say Christina is insane.
Then why did you send for me?
You are devout and godly. But you also take an interest in science. All of these visions started in autumn. When in the heavens we witnessed that shooting star. Christina was afraid of it. She began to go out of her mind. She kept yelling that it was a sign from God. Ever since then, she's had many strange visions, but then yesterday...
Go on.
The vision was unusually strong. She said things about Waldstein. She predicted that he would be murdered.
When would it happen?
She didn't say. But she said that unless Waldstein repents of his sins, he will die soon.
It was extraordinary. A message from God. At that time, Waldstein was perhaps one of the most powerful men in Europe.
You didn't believe the girl.
I can understand how crazy this sounds. But allegedly she said a lot of things that a 16-year-old maiden should know nothing about.
All right. But even if she didn't make it out, why would Waldstein be any interest to you? I mean, he was the enemy, right? You didn't have enough on your plate?
You understand nothing. Before all that, he once belonged to our church. But after the battle at White Mountain, he betrayed us, like Liechtenstein. He changed sides to further his career.
What's he got to do with you?
When I imagined he might believe the prophecy, that he would repent of his sins, that he would come back to our side, this powerful man, it gave us hope. Such enormous hope. Otherwise, I'd never have sent those women to Waldstein.
You what? You sent them to...
Where are we? We need to speak to Prince Waldstein right away.
Anyone could say that, and on what business?
To give warning. If he doesn't repent of his sins, he will die soon.
So you've come here to threaten the prince?
Please understand. This girl had a revelation. She wrote it down. It's a prophetic vision from God. We should not ignore it.
And I rather see it that through this unfortunate girl's mouth spoke the devil himself. Prince Waldstein has nothing to repent. He is a faithful servant of the church, persevering in the fight against its enemies, against the apostates of the Holy Church, against every one of the devil's helpers and unholy witches.
I am telling you again.
You don't have to repeat it. Children have such lively fantasies. We will discover what it is. We employ very effective methods.
What's going on here? I became aware that Countess Zarubova was looking for my husband.
Yes, Your Highness. These women wanted an audience.
So you brought them to the dungeon?
Of course, I ordered them to be held. I suspected they were obsessed with the devil.
Have you gone mad? This is Angelina Zarubova, a noble.
Whether they're noble or common, the devil doesn't care.
Just who do you think you're talking to?
Highness, read for yourself what they wrote. I have in my hands a false prophecy written by this little witch.
Get out of my sight.
Excuse me.
Take your leave, I said.
But Prince Waldstein should be made aware of the danger.
You will hear of it. Trust me, you can depend on it. I admit that I do not tend to believe in such prophecies.
But Your Highness, I saw his bloodied cloak and his pierced heart.
I'll not argue with you. Be glad it ended the way it did. That I came in time.
So you nearly had them sent to their deaths on the rack?
Well, nearly. But imagine that Waldstein really was murdered shortly thereafterwards.
No. So they did it after all. Oh well, Bishop. Life goes on. Take a look. These are some legs, right? Those thighs. This is Hendrika, my second woman. I'm not saying she was my wife. We never did get married. But I did love her. Huh? You wouldn't believe how many people have seen this picture. I'm curious what you would say about that, you being a bishop. And am I ever going to hear anything good about your Dorothy?
She was a devoted and loving woman. She gave me 4 children. I devoted all my spare moments to her, but I admit that there weren't so many. We had to flee again. This time, however, we were leaving our beloved homeland. We set out for Poland, where Leszno became our new home. I was elected as deputy rector of the Leszno Brethren Seminary. And as there were no textbooks, I had no choice but to write them. I was always moving. That's when I published The Gate of Languages Unlocked. I also began to seriously explore Pantsophy. I was haunted by the quest for some all-embracing philosophy, a remedy for the ills of life.
John.
I'm awake.
Really? It's already late. You should go to bed.
Forgive me, Dorothy, but I still have to go to the printers.
At this hour?
Dorothy, wait. Could you please read this for me?
I'll have a look at it.
The printer for Leszno was sponsored by Karel the Elder of Sheratin. The Habsburgs were constantly sniffing around for it. That's why the place of publication is never mentioned in any of the books. It just says in Hortula, which means in the garden. The printer was safe in Leszno, at least for the time being.
I knew you'd be here all night.
Dorothy, I am sorry, but I have so much work.
No, I am sorry, John. The book you gave me yesterday, The Gate of Languages, it's so wonderful. If people could use this kind of textbook, teaching languages would be so much easier.
An invitation to England from Samuel Hartlib. He wants me to reform their system of schooling as well as work on Pansophy. It's a way of realizing my lifelong dream, to unite all scholars and somehow bring together everything that is known and make the world a better place. Dorothy, we can change the world.
And were you really so naive to think that you could change the world? You thought so?
I still do, Rembrandt. Though I don't have much time or energy left. The Lord God allowed me to put this hope into my books. That has been my task. And I believe it will work. Books do not die. And people may not be lost just yet.
But no one is interested in hearing your moralizing. Hear that? Drunken sailors. They've been at sea for months and now all they can think of is enjoying some time with whores. And don't they deserve it? Maybe you should go down on the street and preach them your morality. No. People just don't want to change. I don't want to change either. And I'd love to beat the crap out of the bastards who stole my house. No, I'm no longer going to turn the other cheek to anyone. You keep playing the martyr, sacrificial lamb, Bishop, if that's the kind of fool you are. Let's face it, your enemy's just waiting to skin you alive and don't give a damn if you're quaking with hunger and cold. People used to wait here for hours, just begging me to paint their portrait.
You're home. You have a fever.
I won't go back there. Never.
And what has Rembrandt done to you?
He's a drunkard. Brutish and a rotten lout. He's a troublemaker.
But you know, he's had a hard life. 3 of his children died at birth. 3. Only 1 lived to adulthood. A son. And even that one he buried. You didn't know that? He was even excommunicated because of his second wife. Probably because they were never married.
You'll soon meet with the Queen. Her Majesty agrees that you will write textbooks and help with reforming Swedish education. I will take care of you and your family. Your mind must be free to work.
I still don't understand something, Mr. De Geer. You're an arms maker.
I am. And I make and sell so many cannons to the Swedes that, in comparison, the cost of your family will be negligible. You and your great work, Comenius, is my gift to Sweden. And I will be generous. Very generous.
You manufacture weapons and want to reform education?
And why not?
If the people are learned, they will not want to wage wars.
Excuse me, but this is most likely your Pansophy, isn't it? I have heard. Rehabilitating the whole world once and for all. Well, that is quite a naive way of thinking. You can believe what you want, my friend. You won't stop it. There will simply always be wars.
But there doesn't have to be. People could be spared all that suffering.
For the moment, Sweden is still at war. And it needs smart and educated people. It has a need of textbooks and good schools. That is the task I set. Stay out of politics. And no more Pansophy. That is my stipulation. So, shall we? Let's not keep Her Majesty waiting.
Good day.
Good day.
Rembrandt, Rembrandt von Rijn.
I know of you, Master. But I'm sorry my husband is still asleep. He couldn't get to sleep last night.
I think that's probably my fault. May I come in?
Please.
Did he write this? Mm-hmm. May I? Doodles. And who drew them?
He did.
Isn't writing enough for him? The World in Pictures. Rings a bell. John talked a bit about this book. Is it all in Latin?
The title is Latin, but the book is multilingual. It's already been published in France, in England, in Germany, in Italy, Hungary, in Sweden. I don't know where else.
This is unbelievable. I'm a painter! A great painter, get it? And he goes and draws one tiny little nothing of a bee, and that makes him more famous than me.
John, dear, come. Someone's here for you.
Well, I'm not sure if this should make me happy.
I came to apologize. For the things I said.
Of course I forgive you, my friend.
You're becoming a globetrotter, Master Comenius. And how was it in England?
Excuse me?
You may be surprised that I have heard, but we're at war, and wars are not fought just with muskets. What's important is information, and I know how to get it. You even spoke at the Royal Academy of Sciences in London, and you were successful. They appreciate you as a great scholar. Queen Christina has a love of scholars. She's even hosted Descartes and his compatriot Pascal. But to stave off any disappointment, the Queen's most favorite hero was Alexander the Great. Although he never came here, of course. Master Comenius, did you get involved in English politics?
It's hard not to become involved once you're there. England is on the verge of a civil war. So you know, that's one of the reasons why all of our plans there ended in failure.
Is that so? Fortunately, Sweden is at peace. So it should not be so difficult for you to stay away from politics.
Your Majesty.
I'm to go hunting. You see, it was my father's wish to have me raised as a crown prince, so I can ride, I can fence, and I can shoot quite well. I see you find it surprising. You would rather, how did Luther put it, for the woman to be a field and the man to be a peasant who cultivates her? Then I must disappoint you. But do not worry, I'm also fond of the arts. Sit, please.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
I play chess and study foreign languages. I speak German after my mother, but I also speak French. I would like to establish an academy here, like the one founded by Cardinal Richelieu. Do you know anything about it?
I do. He offered me the position of professor, but I opted for Sweden.
Wonderful.
The crucial thing is to start from the basics.
We intend to reform the whole education system. I am told you will write our textbooks, which I applaud, because I learnt my Latin using your book, The Gate of Languages. A truly exceptional book.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
And what about your emperor, Rudolph II? It is said that he was truly a great collector, is that so?
He was, Your Majesty. He was a great lover of the arts. His collections are truly breathtaking.
Excellent. Perhaps I'll get the chance to see them. So to work. It was a pleasure, Master Comenius.
Your Majesty.
I worked for the Swedes as fast as I could. I wrote the most modern way of teaching languages for them. And as the war was drawing to a close, at every single opportunity, I beseeched them that they wouldn't forget about the Czechs in the peace negotiations. Chancellor Oxenstierna and even the Queen herself gave me their solemn promise.
It's from Leshno?
Another of Drabeek's prophecies. It says the eagle from the north will defeat the Habsburgs. That's what I call a prophecy. The Swedes are nearly at Olomouc and marching towards Vienna. It's as if I were to predict that tomorrow morning the sun will come out.
I don't think I'll ever get used to it here. We should go back to our own home.
I hope we will soon.
Something wrong?
De Geer wrote he's disappointed in me. He writes that he's still waiting for the textbooks. He thought I would be faster.
You're doing too many things at once, John.
There may be some people who can churn out one book after another. I'm not able to.
What does it mean if De Geer is disappointed? What does all this mean for us?
That he won't send us the money.
And you say it just like that?
Unhappy, unhappy. Always unhappy. The English are disappointed that I don't work fast enough on Pansy. The Americans are disappointed that I turned down their offer from Harvard. The Swedes are disappointed that I don't churn out one textbook after another. And when I do write one, they're disappointed in it. Everyone is disappointed.
But what are you talking about?
They say I'm secretly sneaking Calvin's ideas into my textbooks, but that's obvious nonsense.
And what were you working on before I came in?
On Pansy.
But John, we live off those textbooks, not the Reformation of humanity, can't you understand? You shouldn't have married. You and your ideals.
Dorothy. I do my work for us to live. But there's something else that God himself has called me to work on. I believe humanity has a chance to mend its ways. And God is placing into my hands a tool to help that happen. A great and fundamental book that will be read by many generations. You have to trust me, Dorothy. You must trust me.
The hope I placed in the Swedes proved futile. They finally agreed to peace. Westphalia's peace.
So great?
So great? They created quite a milestone, by which every single one of the political conditions were put back to the year 1624.
So what does that mean?
That everything was returned to the time when we were first exiled, when the Habsburgs confiscated everything from us and deprived us of our homeland. Which means that we will never return home again. You understand that? Even if we lived 100 years. De Geer stopped supporting me. So we returned back home to Lesno. Only Dorothy had already fallen ill in Elbing. It took a long time for me to notice. I was a fool. On our return journey to Lesno, her condition got worse. She died in my arms. She went before me, Rembrandt.
I couldn't protect you. Forgive me.
You must not die now, John. The children need you. I see you decided to rise from the grave. This is from the children.
How are they?
They're doing well. They're happy. Just... Daniel, he's still small. He keeps asking for his mother.
Thank you, Johanka, for taking such good care of them. I think I would like something to eat.
Well, finally. I was getting scared that you would leave me to bring up your children completely on my own.
We have both suffered heavy losses, my friend. But you look at the world differently than me. I thought we had every single right to return to our homeland. That God must be on our side. That he must see the world in the same way we do. But why should he? There are horizons we are simply unable to see beyond. There are things we don't understand. I only have faith that God is a loving God and a righteous God, and that he knows of every wrong, of all the horrors that people have brought to pass. After all, compared to them, my suffering is merely trivial. Without God, for me the world would become a place where I wouldn't know how to, where I wouldn't want to live.
Now I get it. I get why they elected you bishop.
This is courage! Travel halfway through Moravia, all the way to Upper Hungary all alone.
Nikolaj, I'm not alone. This is Peter Ficulus, my son-in-law.
The princely court of Rakotsi can't wait to see you.
How do you know about that?
You're very forgetful, John. Do you know what they call me here? The Moravian Nostradamus. A prophet. And you? You are forgetful. I knew you would come. Who else could rekindle the spark of a holy war? I've seen great things, John. God-chosen Prince Sigismund Rakotsi will defeat the Antichrist. It is he who is to defeat the damned Habsburgs.
You cannot think that I will encourage war in Hungary. That would be madness, Mikuláš.
It would be enough to just drop a few hints. They'll be unable to resist. They are just a tool. And who'd want to disobey God? You just give them my prophecy.
I have another mission there, Mikuláš. To reform their education.
I am relaying to you the will of God himself!
It's hard for me to accept the will of God from a drunken priest.
A priest no longer. They took it all away. They don't want to listen to the word of the Lord. Just take this. Think it over. But not for too long. There will never be a better opportunity. Aspects are exhausted by the long war. All that's left is to finish them off. Transylvania is powerful.
Of course Drabik was drunk. His methods started to grate on me. It was foolish to think we could force Transylvania to wage war against the Habsburgs, even though I longed for it. Sigismund Rakotsi and his mother, Princess Lorenfi, were highly educated and wanted others to be as well. It was only that there were no textbooks and there were no teachers, so I had to work non-stop.
And what about the Habsburgs?
The prince understood that he had to stand up against them, but to declare war on them, that would take more courage than he had. Mikuláš Drabik eventually weaseled his way into the prince. Only in the end, the result was a catastrophe.
You cannot go against the will of God. If you haven't got enough soldiers, have the Bible translated into Turkish and I will convert the entire Mohammedan army to Christianity. But don't you dare be disobedient. There's nothing more awful than God's punishment!
It was very daring of Drabik. It was the first time when I saw the prince become furious. Although, of course, Sigismund never did go to war against the Habsburgs. Only 3 months after the wedding, the young princess passed away. Suddenly, without warning.
That must have been good for that lunatic.
He kept shouting. He was ranting. Again and again. He threatened the prince, but in vain. Just 3 months after his wife passed away, Sigismund too became infected and died.
How disturbing.
Majesty, I'm sorry about what happened.
All all of this misery was brought down on us by that crazy man Drabik. Isn't he some kind of friend of yours?
Let's not discuss it now, Rector. We're not here to have a fight. These things are long gone and belong in the past. Shall we not move on to look for the light? As Master Comenius wrote so elegantly, only light has the power to push back the darkness.
Mikolash Drabik and his passionate impulsiveness.
Passionate impulsiveness? Is that what they call it where you're from? I tend to see it more as a disgrace to the authority of the princely court. Who exactly does this Drabik of yours think he is?
If I'm being honest, Mr. Drabik scares me as well. And you don't have to act the part of my spokesman, Mr. Tomlin.
Forgive me, Your Highness.
I'm afraid that my work here is coming to an end. I sense that people are beginning to distrust my presence here.
But I do fancy the idea you had of a school theatre, Master Comenius. My son thought it absolutely thrilling. I would consider it an honor if you could find a way to stay and finish your work exactly as you planned it.
Your Highness, I don't...
You should stay. As long as you truly believe that your work has significant importance.
I still have faith that it could benefit the students.
Those lazy bums will only be benefited by the rod. I fail to see how there is any benefit in your frivolous theatre whatsoever. Leave it to the Jesuits, as they've been staging silly comedies in their schools for a long time now.
Are you truly not able to imagine, Mr. Tolnai, that learning can be an enjoyable act for children?
Learning is not to be enjoyed. And man is intrinsically lazy, and therefore has a need of discipline. It is predominantly a matter of will and of self-denial. The rod is the fastest way of teaching.
That is a sure way to turn children into frightened and obedient sheep. Children who will be terrified, even by the most innocent mention of school. We can show them a better world. Give them a chance, as we are given over and over again by God.
Do you think I was treated any differently at school? Did I suffer negatively? Am I crippled? Not a bit. Today I am grateful to my teachers. Once those children grow to be educated people, lawyers or doctors, whatever, then they will understand we did it for their own good.
I will not argue with you, Mr. Tolnai, but my path is different.
Gentlemen, it is my wish that Master Comenius completes his work here at Sharshbatak in whatever way he sees fit. And I will be grateful to you, Rector, if you would see fit to not complicate the task he has.
Tolnai was right about one thing. The local pupils really were quite lazy. And though right away I brought in a qualified staff of teachers, the results showed the rector was correct. I wanted to make the learning process as interesting as possible. I wrote a book for them, Orbis Pictus, The World in Pictures. And I myself drew every one of the pictures.
I know, I saw the book on your desk when I was there. How many of those pictures did you have to draw?
A lot. I started from the premise that children love seeing pictures. It was a success. But it was not just pictures. I wanted to find other ways to keep children paying attention at school. The magic of theater.
Six questions have I. First, what is the world? It is the earth, the sky as well, the sun and many stars.
The universe, or in Latin, it is called mundus.
Also called cosmos, which means beautiful.
My second question is, why is it beautiful? God created the world like a theater, wisely, beautifully.
entrancing, Master Comenius. I assure you that Shalosh Batak will not ever forget what happened here today, and that this event will be the first of many. Thank you, Master.
Who's writing?
The Brethren Elders, they send their thanks. Your letters were quite encouraging. They say that they feel hope again, and thank you for the monetary gifts that came through you. Well, not very much came today.
But that's not all of it, is it?
Drabik.
Why do all of you have such a problem with Mikolash?
The question is, why don't you? I've been asking myself for years. I don't know anyone apart from you who would bring themselves to be friendly with that crackpot.
I agree, Johanka. I also felt his prophecies were sometimes driven by revenge or to enrich himself. But I cannot ignore the fact that in the past his words used to move me deeply.
He was more often drunk than sober. When the brothers came to rebuke him, he drove them out with a stick in his hand.
But it was the honorable ones who condemned Drabik so vehemently. None of them had the courage or the will to work for change, while thousands of people waited with bated breath for his visions of the fall of the Habsburgs.
But how many of those predictions actually came true? Few, very few.
That's right, and that's why everyone blames him. But those same ones welcomed living lost in a maze. He never did. Perhaps he had manners that might be offensive to us, but he never surrendered. Trust me, Johanka, it was that same Drabik who gave me strength when I faced heartache and despair. Sometimes I would chase wild fantasies, dragging you always behind. Were you never happy with me?
My dear John, I was the happiest. They weren't fantasies. Hope is not a fantasy.
John, we need to go! Or we'll never be able to leave! We should never have stayed this long, but you had to keep putting it off.
Who could know the Poles would burn Leshno down themselves?
You care more about those books than of the children!
You go. I'll be right behind you.
As you wish.
40 years of my work! My books!
All of Leshno burned to the ground. He lost everything, and not for the first time. He buried 2 of his wives, outlived 2 of his children, and that still didn't break him. But there's one thing I just don't get. After all that, he never lost faith in God. Don't tell me this isn't a picture of a great man, a beacon of light in a dark world.
But we were expecting something else, Master.
What? That he'd be astride some horse and holding up a banner. I can only paint what I see, the truth. And I see a man who is able to get everything he could out of life.
We mean no offense, but we simply had different expectations.
No, don't. Keep your money and I will keep the painting. This I painted for a friend, not for you. He was able to give me more than you could ever offer.
Aren't you going to paint today?
I finished it, my friend.
What? So have you already finished the portrait?
Honestly, I finished it last session.
Why did you wait to tell me? Yes. This is me. I'm afraid that the brothers will not be very pleased with this painting.
They came and left.
And why didn't they take it?
I told them they could keep their money. I made this painting only for you, dear John. I'll have it sent to you.
You are a precious man, Master Rembrandt. God has endowed you with a great heart and an enormous talent.
Funny, I've always felt it was more of a curse. I no longer enjoy it.
Yes. There are times when it seems that there is too much darkness in the world. That there is no place for pure joy or for loving friendship. I'm afraid, in the end, we even made God out to be someone people should be scared of. But that is not who my God is. Happiness often melted away in my life, like snow in summer. It came and disappeared again. I was afraid there was no hope. But you know that I never give up on God. I know that people aren't always the best, but I also know that we are not yet completely lost. God bless you, my friend.
Those who worked on the English version: Jim High, Peter Hosking, Gabriel Andrews, Michael Pitfin, Jamie Marshall, Steen Argo, James Beaumont, Abigail Rice, Paul Dean, Charlotte Fairman, Sinead Phelps, Andrea Miltner, Jessica Boone, Adam Casp, Van Alexander Smith, Sammy Ringrose, Joshua Ellers. Project Manager, Alexandra Zuntova. Sound Master, Rico Kazaza. Dubbing Director, Brian Casp. This film was produced by Studio Beep for Vista Film Production in 2022.